Hello everyone, and welcome back to the channel. JC here with another video on Action Taimanin. Today we're gonna check the new character release supporter for Francis. But before we start, don't forget to leave a like, share and subscribe if you enjoy the content. So, my assessment of this supporter has changed after testing her because there's a small detail that we have to pay attention to in this description. So, first of all, let's read the effects. Number 1. Suppressed type characters penetration is increased by 14%. That goes up to 28%, which is pretty decent, pretty good. Restrictive though, but it is definitely worth it. Number 2. Increases melee damage by 22% to disarm enemies. This goes up to 44%. Nice damage increase. It is higher than Suzune's, but Suzune will most likely activate its effect throughout the whole battle, while Francis is only going to activate her effect when the enemy is disarmed, which is not going to be all the time. Keeping the disarm debuff is not as simple. Number 3. The passive on the active says has a 10% chance to disarm the enemy for 4 seconds when performing normal melee attacks every 15 seconds. So this one is the important one. It's gonna be 8 seconds when maxed out, and you're gonna have guaranteed a 7-second cooldown. Well, not cooldown, downtime for the disarm and the chance to activate it. So that's okay. It is balanced. But the thing that really pushes this into not OP is the 10% chance. If it was 20%, it would be very, very good. But with 10%, it's like you don't have a 15-second cooldown. It's like you have a 20-second cooldown, because you also have to add the chance of actually landing that debuff, which is not great. Even so, this support is still good. It is pretty usable. I'm going to show you a run on BR. I still need more testing on the different kind of BRs, but right now we only have machine, so I tried it on machine. Lastly, active. Throws bombs around that deal 370 damage. That's going to be 740% of damage, and stuns the enemy. So yeah. What can I say about this? It's not busted by any stretch of the imagination. And it is a viable supporter to do abusive strategies that rely on Witsu to keep the enemy permanently debuff. For sure, you can use this one on those strategies. But there's many conditions that need to be in place for you to use those abusive strategies. Number 1, you want a big enemy that you won't explode because the battle has to last. So it's going to be a BR boss. Big enemies, we have Queen Kanaloa, we have LWS Squad, and we have Queen Arachne. Number 3, you don't want good mobility on those, and preferably not too many of them if you want to abuse the debuff and permanently keep the enemy disarmed. So that leaves us only with Queen Arachne. So Queen Arachne is probably the best target to abuse this debuff. Oboro, unfortunately, is too fast. I mean, she walks. So just because of that, she's going to have an advantage because you have to go after her and you cannot keep attacking while going after her. Some characters can, others cannot. So that's why it's difficult to keep the debuff on her by using Witsu. So yeah. Other things that we need to take into consideration are the synergies that this supporter has with other supporters. For example, all the debuff supporters, the debuff activation condition supporters are going to be very good with this one. But due to the fact that the enemy is not permanently debuffed, you also need some other way of debuffing the enemy to keep these effects, like Gal Lilim, Christmas Kirara, Suzune, of course. Where is Suzune? Suzune And these are great with this one. Other supporters that are great are the disarm supporters. Tachibana is probably one of the best supporters for disarm. She has an active that disarms for 10 seconds. It gives a 50% damage increase. That's great. But as I mentioned, keeping that disarm up can be somewhat of a hassle. So it is a legit strategy, but I wouldn't call it abusable in the most cases. Let's see. We also have... where are they? Like other supporters that you need to take into consideration are, over here, over this part. This one. Tatsumi. Tatsumi is going to be another supporter that can disarm. This is going to be only 8 seconds. And there's also this one. Nodoka. Nodoka is not great because it doesn't offer anything good on her passive. It's gold, and that's not useful in battle. But she has a 10-second disarm, which is longer than Tatsumi. But Tatsumi has effects that actually work on battle. So that's something to keep in mind. Obviously, the thing that everyone is thinking about is using Witchu, which is great. If you have Witchu, 2 copies of Witchu, you can probably abuse this, but as I said, there has to be a set of conditions that you have to use, that you have to keep in mind. Other things, going back to Francis, she wants fast attackers and multi-hit attackers. Probably the best option that I have tried is... what's the name of this girl? Shizuru, yeah, Shizuru. She has multi-hits and she can become really fast. She's not slow, but you can also use speed increase supporters. Things like Momochi Nagi. Depending on your character, you want to use Momochi Nagi. You want to use Lapis. You want to use Spinel. You want to use Noah to increase your speed and be able to attack faster. Also, another thing that you need to take into consideration is that you want to use the butterfly weapons for your characters. These weapons are going to help you out to abuse that effect. And there's one like another weapon, this one, the Kakuryo for Hebiko, yeah. For Hebiko, that also increases speed. If your weapons increase speed, then they're going to help out. But you want like a ton of speed increase. Like this, as I said, this makes Kirara like a standard attacker. Like she's not slow with this weapon, but I wouldn't call her fast. So don't try to use Francis with Kirara because she's just too slow to abuse this debuff. Even though her basic enhancer it's really good due to the multi-hit, I wouldn't recommend it. So, first of all, we're gonna test it here on tower. And I'm gonna be using Aneros, obviously, with Kaha Hirako. I'm gonna be using Critical Magatamas. This is 5 out of 5, 5 out of 5, plus 14, this one, and this one plus 15. Whatever Magatamas on the sub-slop. We need, super important, if you want to use this on challenging content, because that's the idea, that you use it on challenging content, you want characters with HP recovery. That's why I went with Aneros, because she has recovery thanks to Devour on pure red. The effect is not the greatest on Devour, but as long as it gives HP recovery, it fulfills its purpose. Then I'm using the basic enhancer, Yaksha Ito style, and I'm using Rymax to just destroy the enemy. So for supporters, I'm going to be using Aneros to increase my critical so that I can land that critical hit on Rymax that has the critical damage increase. I'm also using Momochi Nagi, as I mentioned. You want the speed so that you can abuse this debuff. Lastly, of course, I'm going to use Francis so that we can abuse the penetration and the disarm, as well as the damage increase. My Francis, as you can see, is not maxed out, but the important effect is actually this one, the one that we want to abuse. But due to being 10%, it is not abusable or as abusable as I would like. Like, I am really investing a lot of resources into having a speed increase support and a butterfly weapon max out. So keep that in mind. If you want to use this, you need good equipment and good supporters that enhance your speed. And also characters with good speed and combo capability. Multi-hit too. So I'm going to use Rymax. And the important part is when we see a boss, but there I already inflicted the disarm. So you want to wait for the animations to spend some of that cooldown so that you can use your disarm again. Don't skip your animations. Okay, I'm going to use Devour. I'm going to use Rymax there. Okay, if I can get near the enemy. Oh, come on, really? Come on, closer. So here's the thing. Basically, you want to use the disarm and then do as much damage as possible. You have seen that I am not inflicting that disarm. That's the problem. Okay, finally I did the disarm with the Devour. And you want to break the super armor while the disarm is up. So that when the disarm is goes down, you use you just deal damage. You break the super armor and you stun the enemy and you can continue attacking. That's the idea with this supporter. Disarm, finish breaking the super armor, and stun the enemy when the super armor is broken, so that you can deal damage effectively. Okay. There. And also, like, come on, position. There. Nice. Disarm. Excellent. Not able to do anything. Damage. Devour. And the enemy has super armor. And there we go. So yeah, you see that even with this speed, not always I was inflicting that debuff. That's the problem. You don't want to use this supporter or to be your only means of disarming the enemy. So here on this round, it looks bad. It looks pretty bad. But we're doing it on solo content. This supporter is not great on solo content because you at some point the disarm is always going to be down. But if you have a whole team and you can use different strategies and synergies, then that's another thing. That's completely different. I'm gonna do a run here. I did my runs on step 41 twice, but it was just too easy. So I'm going to go to 59. So what are we doing here? I'm going to show you the whole team because the whole team is really aggressive. Really not aggressive, oppressive. It just won't let the enemy do anything at all. Starting with Micah. Micah has 2 beat sticks and they are plus 13. The Magatamas, of course, are anti-machine. And then whatever Magatamas. Then we have Ruthless Explosion to increase my damage by inflicting defense down. Carpet Bombing to protect myself from any mobs that come near me. And lastly, we have Death from Above to deal a ton of damage and do multi-hits. And we care about the multi-hits of all these skills because we're not using we're not using here White Feather Asuka. You can use White Feather Asuka, and it's probably a better option. Since I increase the difficulty, I will, but let me tell you about Tachibana. Tachibana is good, but not good enough. You actually want this supporter on a melee character, because usually you're going to attract the attention of the enemies, and it says increase damage by 50% to disarm enemies, and the active says that it disarms nearby enemies for 10 seconds. It is a very good protective skill in case of one of those LWS machines get next to Micah. But here I'm going to change it so that we use White Feather Asuka, because I want to break that super armor. Of course, we're using Yukina and Fuyutsuki because I'm going to deal with the mobs, and I'm also going to increase my damage with Yukina. Then we're going to be using Saika. Saika has this weapon 3 out of 5, but that's fine. Plus 15. 5 out of 5, plus 13. Anti-machine Magatamas with wood element that gives me more defense against the machines, as well as snare capabilities, which is great. Whatever Magatamas here. Skills. Shadowless Kick, because I have the weapon and it is my main damaging skill. Number 2, I'm going to be using Takeover. Takeover is really, really great because it's another way to disarm the enemies. So they are not going to be able to attack me. Then I'm going to be using Moon Assault. Moon Assault is a way to recover HP. Usually Moon Assault would be terrible on Machine VR, but since we are using a strategy that focuses on disarming the enemy, they won't be able to walk and do that knockback attack, which is great. It's excellent. So yeah, the big disadvantage is that Takeover, as you can see, has a huge cooldown, but we're gonna do something about that. So first of all, we have Hisui to reduce the damage coming to this character from the bosses. Then we have Tempest Lina to reduce the cooldown. It's going to consume 10% of particles every 10 seconds, but we really want to reduce the cooldown of Takeover so that the enemy is not able to do anything. Lastly, I'm going to be using Misaki as a way to increase my damage, but also heal and give myself particles. Lastly, we're going to be using Shisui. Shisui is a suppressed type character, as you can see, so she's going to pair well with Francis. We're using Eye of Dawn, 4 out of 5, plus 15, and the PvP weapon, plus 14, 5 out of 5, and Anti-Machine Magatamas with wind and water, but I'm only using water. Then we're going to use Rose Rondo to reduce the defense, deal a ton of damage, as well as buff me and Saika, because we are using the Dawn of Eye, so I get that extra effect. Then I'm using Whip Shot to reduce the defense, and this one is the one that uses the multi-hit. So this is the one that is going to, most of the time, inflict the debuff onto the enemy, the disarm debuff. And lastly, Sprout Guardian to recover HP. So we're using Francis, of course, no doubt. We need a fast attacker, a multi-hit attacker, and that's why I'm using Shizuru. And she's also suppressed, so she gets the penetration. Then we're using Momochi Nagi. As I mentioned, you want, if possible, to increase your speed to have even more chances of inflicting that debuff. Lastly, we're going to use Susune. Since I'm using other characters, I can inflict more debuffs. In the case of Shizuru, she naturally inflicts 2 debuffs with her skills. If I had another skill, Chasing Strike, I could inflict... No, not Chasing Strike. Whip Grip. I could inflict another debuff on top of that. And that would be devastating, but I won't. So, yeah. Not all characters can do that. Like, Anna Rose has a hard time inflicting debuffs. Like, she can inflict some debuffs, but she wouldn't be able to abuse Susune while using Francis. So keep that in mind. You have to be aware of what your team is doing and what your main character is doing to know if you're going to use Susune or not. So let's try it. So yeah, this is gonna be easy, I guess. Like, I tried it twice on 41. So I'm pretty confident that I can. Okay, disarm already. Increase attack. Nice. You see those disarms? They are great. They are excellent. Nice. Perfect. Dealing a ton of damage, keeping the enemy busy while Micah does the damage over the corner. Yeah. And there we go. Nice. The speed increase is also super important here because it allows me to hit more and activate those disarms. Come on, I'm going to use the ultimate too. Like, I shouldn't skip the animations. I always do because I prefer to do the hits, but that's a me thing. Like, the optimal thing is to see the animation. Come on. Okay, Micah, you did great. Perfect, great. Just one more. Yeah, as you can see, the benefit of this, even if it's not permanent, even if it's not super consistent, the debuff, applying the debuff, the advantage is that you're constantly interrupting the damage output of the enemy. So they deal a ton of damage and then you have a lot of breathing space. And then maybe they hit you again, but you already recover HP with your HP recovery abilities and such. So yeah, it is not as risky. It is a viable strategy and you can use it for farming. It is good. So this supporter, I recorded this previously, but I didn't want to oversell her. She is definitely usable. I don't think that she's as abusable as I initially thought. But she could do some silly things next to Witsu. But because of the amount of investment that you require, there's like other strategies that are far easier, like using who? Where are you? Girl. Yeah, I removed her, so she should be here. Using Tachibana, I think is way better because you decide when to activate the disarm, and then you just use Witsu with your other two characters to keep the enemy disarmed. So yeah, a free supporter better than this one? Well, kind of. I mean, you can use this on the sub slot if you have it 5 out of 5, and it's going to give you a ton of value. That penetration is really great, and the damage increase is more than what Susune gives. Susune gives 40%. So even if you are not able to abuse this, there's a ton of value in this supporter. There's many ways to use it. You can try to abuse the active, or you can just rely on the good main effect. So yeah, that's what I wanted to show you guys. I'm going to be recording more footage of this whenever we have more different bosses, to see how well this performs. Because yeah, for multiple enemies, this is kind of nice because you're going to be able to reduce the damage output of the group, and that's great. Also, one more thing before we finish. This is another topic, but I just wanted to give you a heads up. So we have a new weapon. It's not available just yet. I mean, it's in the code, but it's not available. It's Wicked Star Canablade. This is going to be for Espinal, as you can see. And this is going to give damage increase against demons as well as damage reduction against demons. And it also increases the damage of Demonic Arm Detonate, which is the blue skill. And that means that we're going to be able to use one of the best... I mean, all of her colors are good, but Blue is the one that buffs herself. So yeah, she's gonna be real explosive, and she's gonna get a better niche at VR. She could be used on VR, but she wasn't performing like super great with this weapon due to the critical resistance. But now she's gonna perform super well against the demons. So yeah, that's about it for today. Let me know if you know other synergies, something that I omitted about this character, this supporter, any kind of combination, any kind of character that can abuse this very well. And I'll be seeing you next time. Bye!